Let's talk about TV, movies, phones, games, and the web. I mean, I put them all in one category. So you want to be intentional on this, but there's a wrong way to be intentional. And by intentional, I do not mean that you decide to intentionally buy everyone their own device.
These ones are getting heavier because I know you said as the list goes on, it's kind of chronological and it's getting heavier as our kids are getting older. And so let's shoot number 9 out.
Yes. So like I said, we've been going through this list in an approximately chronological order as to when you face them. You face the education decision when your kids are young, but then it gets harder as they get into extracurricular activities and have tough conversations about fashion statements. Well, now on number 9, let's talk about TV, movies, phones, games, and the web. I mean, I put them all in one category. So you want to be intentional on this, but there's a wrong way to be intentional. And by intentional, I do not mean that you decide to intentionally buy everyone their own device. That would be one way to be intentional. Okay.
Sure.
We're just getting all of you an iPhone, call it a day, and we'll, sit at the dinner table and look at our screens.
Oh.
That would be one way to do this, but that's not what we're talking about. You know that. And the screens, the devices, they become a distraction so easily. So there's all kinds of best decisions Rachael and I made here. I want to tell a story about video games first, and then I'll tell you the best decision we made, which was not necessarily on video games specifically. But when my older boys were about 8 and 10 years old, they came home after playing with the neighbor kids, and they had one of these things called a Game Boy. This was back in the late 90s. They had a Game Boy in their hand. And they said, "Dad, the neighbor kids got a brand new Game Boy. They gave us this one. It's still in good condition. We know you and Mom have been very, cautious about video games in the house, but we promise that we will share this. We will not fight about it. Can we please have it?" And I was just like, oh, great. It begins. And as a parent, I just felt like, oh boy, this is going to be a long journey trying to figure out this parenting gig. So I said, okay, here's the deal. And I kind of came up with this quickly on the spot. I'll let you play with it for 1 hour a week. And if there's ever any fighting over this thing, we're taking it away. And they're like, okay, Dad, absolutely. 1 hour a week. We will not fight. Thank you so much. We're going to be great at this. We're going to use our first hour right now.
Of course.
Of course. So they go up to the room. They start playing whatever. I'm downstairs. And it's not 15, 20 minutes. I'm hearing screaming, yelling, all kinds of pandemonium going on upstairs in the bedroom. So I walk up there. I remember standing at the doorway, just looking at them, and they couldn't see me. They were practically at each other's throats. And I just stood there, didn't say a word. And then, in a minute or two, they saw that I was standing there. We caught eyes. They looked at me. And there was this moment just frozen in our memory banks where they just looked at me and said, "Dad, oh my goodness, you were right." And they walked over and handed me this Game Boy, and that was the end of the story. Now, I'll say this too. I love telling this story partly because I'm a mechanical engineer, so I actually love technology from a historical standpoint, if nothing else. And on our attic, I have what I call my technology museum. I have the original Macintosh that Rachael and I had.
Oh my! That must take up like half of your attic.
Oh, it was one of those. Oh, it does. I mean, in terms of all the things I got, I have some cassette tapes, VHS tapes, an incandescent light bulb, old technology, and several of the cell phones that I had from the early Motorola. And sitting up there is this Game Boy. And so it's just up there as a reminder of this story. So we didn't avoid video games completely. As a general rule, we didn't have them. And we let the kids play when they would go to an event, a friend's house. But by and large, because they weren't on them all the time and we basically didn't do them at home for the most part, they didn't become an obsession or an addiction for our kids. And with boys, you got to be really intentional about that, because otherwise for boys, as in dad and the kids, it can become an addiction and really take away time from the family and from good productive time. But let me go to the best decision we made on this topic. And that was the house we're in right now. We've been in for almost 20 years. And we intentionally, again, the key word is we're talking about being intentional parenting and radically intentional. We put the only TV screen in the basement. So there is no TV screen on the first floor of our house. So if you're going to watch a movie or a sporting event or TV, you have to intentionally go downstairs to watch it. And typically we're going down as a family to say, okay, it's Friday, pizza and movie night. What movie do we want to watch? And we all go downstairs and we're watching something together as a group on purpose. Nobody's just randomly turning the TV on. It's not just randomly on in the background. And that has created a culture in our household where it's conversation first. There's not this distraction with the screen. Now, this doesn't mean we don't have iPhones or laptops or iPads. Sure. We use technology, but because we haven't had a family lifestyle of video games, and because we haven't had a screen on the first floor, even screen time has been more intentional than I believe it would have been if we hadn't made some of those decisions.
Homeschool Insights is sponsored by CTC Math. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com and try it for free. For more great homeschool inspiration and resources, listen to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.